Have you ever been at a dinner table just watching in total disbelief as someone won't even try the food? Or, hey, maybe you're that person and you are so tired of hearing, just take one bite. Well, let's get into it, because the frustration around picky eating is something we all get. But what if the reasons go way, way deeper than just being difficult?
So let's just get one thing straight right off the bat. The idea that picky eating is just a choice, a sign that someone's spoiled or just being stubborn, that usually misses the entire point. The truth is, there's this really complex mix of biology and psychology that's almost always going on behind the scenes.
So let's start with the stuff we're born with, our biological hardware, if you will. For a lot of picky eaters, the issue really starts with their basic senses. They are, and I mean this quite literally, wired to experience food way more intensely than other people.
Okay, I want you to imagine turning the volume dial for taste and smell all the way up to 11. For some people, that's just their normal, everyday reality. That slightly bitter taste in broccoli that you might barely even notice, to them, it can be completely overwhelming. And it's the same thing with textures. What feels creamy to one person might feel just awful and slimy to another. It's not in their head, it's a genuine physical overstimulation. And you know what? There's actually a name for this. They're called super tasters. And that is not an exaggeration. These folks physically have more taste buds packed onto their tongues, which means flavors, especially the bitter ones, are just massively amplified. So when a super taster tells you something is way too intense, they are not being dramatic. Their sensory input is just on a whole different level.
Now, beyond just having heightened senses, there's this really ancient instinct at play called food neophobia. It literally means the fear of new foods. And if you think about it from our ancestors' point of view, it makes a ton of sense, right? If you stumbled upon some strange new berry in the wild, would you just pop it in your mouth? Probably not. That caution was a really important survival skill that kept us from being poisoned.
And that ancient instinct? It shows up today by creating what you could call a safety zone. A person will stick to this small, rotating list of meals that they know and trust. For them, trying a new, unfamiliar dish isn't just a question of taste. It can feel genuinely risky because some deep, primal part of their brain is just screaming, "Warning, unknown substance."
Okay, so we've got the biological wiring, the hardware. Now let's talk about the software, our life experiences. Because our memories and our emotions are incredibly powerful forces in shaping what we will and absolutely will not eat.
This is a story that so many of us recognize, the classic dinner table standoff. You know, when a child is forced to sit there and eat something they don't want, they're not just tasting the food, they're experiencing pressure, anxiety, maybe even conflict. And what happens is their brain forges this super powerful link. That specific food now equals stress. It's not even a conscious choice anymore. It becomes a conditioned reflex that can stick with them for their entire life.
And this connection between food and our emotions, it runs really deep. I mean, when life feels chaotic or out of control, food can become one of the few things a person feels like they can control. So sticking to familiar, safe foods provides this real sense of security. On top of that, feeling anxious can actually heighten our physical sensitivity, making us even more turned off by certain textures, like things that are mushy or slimy.
All right, so we've talked about emotional memory, but there's another kind of memory that's just as powerful, if not more so, physical memory. Our bodies are designed to protect us, and believe me, they have very long memories when it comes to something that's made us feel sick.
Here's how incredibly powerful this is. If you have ever gotten sick after eating something, and here's the crazy part, even if the food wasn't actually the cause of the sickness, your brain can create an immediate and lasting aversion to it. It essentially blacklists that food, flagging it as a potential threat. This survival mechanism is so strong that even the smell of that food can make you feel nauseous years and years later.
So we've looked at the biology, we've looked at the psychology, and this all kind of leads to one really big question. Given that these reasons are so complex and so often completely involuntary, how should we even think about picky eating? Is it really a problem that we need to declare war on?
Yeah, let's just tackle that head on. Is this some kind of character flaw that needs to be fixed, or is it something else entirely? Well, the answer, as it so often is not a simple yes or no.
You know, it's really important to have some perspective here. The vast majority of picky eating cases are pretty mild. It's incredibly common, and honestly, as long as someone's getting the basic nutrients they need, it doesn't really affect their health. It only becomes a real concern when the variety of food is so extremely limited that it starts to mess with their nutrition or really gets in the way of their social life.
This right here is probably the most important thing to take away from all of this.
When you think about everything we've discussed, the sensory overload, the anxiety, the conditioned reflexes, it becomes so clear that pressure is the absolute worst thing you can do. It just adds more stress and it makes those negative associations even stronger. The only real path forward is through gentle, patient exposure.
So maybe we just need to reframe this whole situation. Instead of seeing a picky eater as a problem that we need to solve, what if we see them as a person with a totally unique set of sensory experiences and a unique personal history with food? And maybe asking about that with genuine curiosity instead of judgment could change the entire dynamic at the dinner table.